Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today I'm going to make a gravity ice dyed shirt with diagonal folds. Before I took the shirt outside, I drew a diagonal line from one shoulder of the shirt to the opposite corner of the shirt. And then I drew some marks about every 3 inches along that diagonal line. I'm going to use these marks as guides for where to fold the shirt in a little while. For my setup, I'm using a couple of plastic sawhorses, and then in between the sawhorses, I've placed a piece of vinyl guttering upside down. That will give me a flat surface to lay the shirt on. I'm going to place the diagonal line that I drew on the shirt onto the piece of vinyl guttering. The shirt at this point is longer than the piece of guttering. I'm going to start at the shoulder portion of the shirt, and I'm going to make sure that that part of the shirt is hanging in between the 2 sawhorses. I'm going to pinch the lines that I drew every 3 inches apart and pleat them up. I'm just going to eyeball how far to take each of the pleats up on the shirt. I'm also going to line up the pleats so that I maintain my straight line going diagonally. When I have the entire shirt pleated, I want to make sure it's fitting in between the 2 sawhorses and the sides of the shirt are able to hang down in between the sawhorses. That's the part that's going to be gravity dyed, and I want the dye to be able to flow freely. So for this shirt, I decided to use eggplant, and I actually have 2 different eggplant dye colors. I have one from Dharma, and I have one from Pro Chemical and Dye. So I decided to use both of them on this same shirt. Though they're named the same name, they actually don't look exactly the same. I've included a photo of my liquid dyed swatches so you can see that they do look pretty different. Even though the shirt is still damp, I want it to be very damp. So I'm going to spray it with a little bit of soda ash solution before I apply the dye. I've been experimenting to see whether if I leave the shirts really damp, not dripping, but more damp than just if I spin them out normally, if it helps the dye to move down the shirt more quickly. So that's kind of why I'm going to spray this shirt with the soda ash solution, get it pretty damp, and see how it works. I'm going to start off by applying the eggplant from Pro Chemical and Dye. And what I'm doing is applying it across about 3 of the different pleats that I made, then skipping 3 pleats and applying a little bit more. I'm only applying the dye to that line and just a little bit on either side of the line. Then I'm going to do the same thing with Dharma's eggplant. And I'm trying to apply about the same amount of each dye color. Then I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top of this dye line and add on some pretty large chunks of ice. I make these larger chunks of ice in all kinds of containers, like Cool Whip containers. I think these are cottage cheese and sour cream containers. And I've found that these larger chunks of ice work really well for the gravity dyes. I do my gravity dyeing outside and it's really hot here. So these take a little bit longer to melt. I don't have to replace the ice quite as often, and they work really well. So after this first batch of ice melted, I came back and added another layer of ice. These I'd made from some old ice cream containers. And the ice doesn't come out of these very well, so I usually just take the lid off the container, turn them upside down, and leave the containers on until enough of the ice melts that I can take the container off. I've included some process photos so you can see how the ice melted and the dye moved down through the shirt. After the second layer of ice melted, I took this shirt, placed it on a rack down inside of a larger container that has a lid. Put the lid on the container, and then I left the shirt outside to process for a full 24 hours. Okay, so to rinse the shirt, I took it to my utility sink and I started rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. Then because the shirt isn't really tied, I just went ahead and warmed the water up to hot, and I continued rinsing in hot water to try to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Instead of rinsing for a long time, I went ahead and ran some really hot water in my utility sink, added some Blue Dawn dish soap to the water, placed the shirt inside, and allowed it to soak. When the water cooled off, I changed it out, and I continued that soaking process until my water was remaining almost clear. Then I put the shirt along with some Dharma's professional textile detergent into my washing machine, and I washed it using a hot water cycle. Okay, so the shirt has been washed, dried, and ironed, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one looks really cool. I didn't exactly know what to expect. I knew I was going to have a darker line where I was applying the dye, but I think that all of the streaks going away from that center line look pretty cool. I mean, they're all about the same distance, which I measured out and pleated about the same amount. So I think that's a cool effect. And then I like the fact that the two eggplant colors are not exactly the same. I mean, I was expecting that too because my color swatches don't look exactly the same. So I think it is the eggplant from Dharma, which has got that kind of olive green color coming out of it. And I think that's really pretty. I also love the dye flow. You know, that is the thing that I love the best about gravity dyes is just that really cool organic dye flow. I love the way it just looks almost like watercolor streaming out from one main area on the shirt. And I think that's gorgeous. I think it's just very organic, very free form. I think it's just a cool effect. And by the way, even though these two eggplant colors have different color splits, on that main line, the way they kind of blend together, it looks like one color going all on that main line, but that the color just has different color splits in different areas. I think that's kind of fun too. And as far as making the shirt more damp with the soda ash solution before I applied the dye, I don't really know if it helped out a whole lot. There are just so many factors that come into play with gravity dyeing, the type of fabric that you use, the thickness of the fold, even the dye colors that you use, the amount of liquid that you put through there, the amount of wind that you have if you're doing this outside, the heat. There are just so many factors. But on this shirt, the dye moved really well. I only had to apply 2 layers of ice before the dye fully dissolved and went all the way to the outer edges of the shirt. So I consider it a success to apply a little bit more soda ash solution to the shirt before applying the dye. But here again, it probably would have worked out pretty well even if I hadn't done that. So if you're maybe having a hard time getting the dye to dissolve and flow all the way down to the edges of the shirt, you can try that. You can spray a little bit of soda ash solution on the shirt or add some more ice to dissolve some of that dye. Try to promote it flowing through the shirt. I've done all of these things. Just experiment with it. Find out what works for you and the shirt that you're doing. So overall, I love the shirt. I think it's really pretty. This was something I've never tried before. I just thought, let's give it a whirl and see what would happen if I just kind of pleated the shirt instead of actually tying it or twisting it or doing very much to manipulate the fabric. And I think it's a pretty cool effect. But what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And if you've enjoyed watching the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.